let's start from this small detail, like very small detail. Elohim. Why they never told us that it was gods and goddesses? Why they hide that simple detail and religion?
I guess they didn't. Whoever was responsible for forming doctrines, they didn't trust us enough to say people can figure that out.
Hi everyone, and welcome to Ask A Freemason Podcast. I'm your host, Ramiro Montes. And today we have one of the most witty Freemasons and extraordinary authors in Kabbalah, Tarot, Freemasonry, and ceremonial magic, Lon Milo Duquette. Lon Milo is one of the longest living members of the Order Templars Orientis, the OTO. He's a deputy Grand Master of the OTO. In his early days, he was a member of the Masonic Youth Order of the DeMolay. Later in life, he became a Freemason and Scottish. I think I read almost all his books, and I say I think because I keep finding new books all the time. And yeah, of course, he keeps writing books. Among so many subjects like Aleister Crowley, Telema, Tarot, Solomon and Magic, Lon Milo Duquette, or let's say his alter ego, Rabbi Lamed Ben Clifford, wrote 2 books about Kabbalah that not only rocked my Kabbalah world, but also many other people's were lost in the subject. He explained Kabbalah like nobody else. We're going to talk about Freemasonry, Kabbalah, Night Templars, artificial intelligence, and the Matrix. This is my conversation with Lon Milo Duquette. Enjoy. Okay, so welcome to Ask a Freemason, and we're going to ask a Freemason, Lon Milo Duquette. Thank you for coming.
You're welcome. Thanks for inviting me back.
I wanted to ask you, actually, your dad was a Mason.
Yes.
Then you became a DeMolay.
Yes.
And then a Mason, and then Scottish Rite. Your brother is a Mason. So technically,
yes.
So you are a Lewis, and your brother is a Lewis too.
Right.
And that's the beginning, pretty much opened your doors to the mysticism of life.
I got to blame my dad. My dad was a very cool guy. Okay. He was a very modest guy, and he died really young. He was like 61 when he died, which is too young. But he's truly one of the most modest and noble characters that I've ever met. You know, if everybody was like my dad, there'd be world peace. And he was very human too. It's not that, I'm not trying to deify him or anything, but he was a Freemason, and he joined the Freemasons in 1948.
Okay.
The year I was born, and he joined. He did his Blue Lodge at Signal Lodge in Long Beach, and that's the lodge that I ended up joining.
As a DeMolay first?
No. We had moved to Nebraska, and so when I was 14. I was 14 years old, and my dad said, I think you should be a DeMolay. I didn't know what the heck, I'm like 14-year-old kid, and I don't know what. And I joined DeMolay. You know how an old lodge room feels, okay? Especially one that's been there since the, late 1800s. Kind of thing. You just walk into it, and you walk into a bubble where time doesn't exist anymore.
From the bathroom to everything.
Right. And this lodge room is so old that you could still smell the stale cigar smoke in the in the carpet, But it had indirect lighting and very subdued sort of neutral wall coverings. That beautiful indirect lights in the south and the east and the west, and podiums and the altar in the center. And I knew I was walking into a timeless dimension. And of course, Dad always kept everything about Masonry secret. Oh, you'll know when you're a Mason, I can't tell you that, And so I thought, oh my God, this is what it's all about, this feeling. I sort of just, walked through the DeMolay experience. I loved, of course, dressing up in my cape and everything. And I enjoyed the fact that I was an officer. I was chaplain, and then I was seventh preceptor, I think, is about as far as I went up the chairs. Some part of the DeMolay experience was absolutely mind-blowing. As a matter of fact, it was everything that I was always hoping religion would be. Okay, it inspired me like that. But it was religion without the superstition.
Right.
If that's the way to put it. And I really, really enjoyed the DeMolay story associated with the main degree there. And it was fun, of course, for my friends, fellow students I went to school with and things like that. And it was fun dressing up like that and torturing each other and all of that. It was just, it was enjoyable. But even more than that, it gave me for the first time a real moral compass. The story of DeMolay taught me what I was, things are supposed to tell you what you're for in life, honesty and truthfulness and respect for your family and your country and everything. That's all fine and good. But at the same time, the DeMolay story taught me what I should be against.
Right.
And that's superstition,
right,
and tyranny and oppression. And that those lessons, just in that, taking part in that simple, dramatic ceremony. I didn't have to go to a lecture. I didn't have to take tests. It was like I was allowed to be put in a movie. I was given a character in a movie to play, and I lived it out, not only in my own initiation ceremony, but I was allowed to be a character in the play to help others be initiated into this wonderful world of self-awareness.
Okay, Mara, I want to show you something. There's a clip of Malcolm in the Middle where the dad comes back home. When he goes to turn on the kitchen light, it doesn't work. It's dead. So he goes to find a bulb replacement, and the cabinet shelf falls apart. So he tries to fix the shelf, and the drawer where the screwdriver was is squeaking. Then he goes to the garage to get the DW40. He shakes the can, and he realizes that it's almost empty. Grab the car keys to get DW40, and now the car is making some weird noise. And when his wife comes home...
Al, can you replace that light bulb in the kitchen?
What does it look like I'm doing?
And that's my journey into Kabbalah.
There you go.
I started on the wrong foot. I started on Christian Kabbalah, and nothing really makes sense for a long time. And then you go to Shondi or Athanasius Krishner or all the people that make this Christian Kabbalah. It didn't make sense for a long time until I finally, in the 2000s, I learned the real Jewish Kabbalah. It makes more sense than my old journey. I never found out about your book until I want to say 2004. And actually, I give you kudos because you wrote this book in 2001, right? Or 2000?
It was quite a while ago, yeah.
Let's start from this small detail, like very small detail. Elohim. Why they never told us that it was gods and goddesses? Why they hide that simple detail and religion?
I guess they didn't. Whoever was responsible for forming doctrines Christian doctrines, either Orthodox or Roman Catholic or Protestant. Whoever was in control, presenting the religion to the people as a whole, the masses as a whole, even if they understood the simple subtlety of that, and we'll explain it in just a second, they didn't trust us enough to say people can figure that out. Why they chose certain words to describe God or to indicate God. There's dozens of different words that when we go to our King James Version, it just says God, or it says Lord, or it might say Lord God, or it might say Lord God Almighty, or it might say Lord of Hosts. But mostly it just says God. God did this, God did. In the beginning, God created. Well, in Genesis, where it says, in the beginning, God created heaven and earth. Okay, the word God that's used in Hebrew, and I tell you, every minister that goes to seminary knows what that Hebrew word is, and then somehow they put it in part of their brain that they just ignore, you know. In the beginning, God, Bereshit Elohim. And that word Elohim is a weird word, okay? El means God. Eloah is God, female. Elohim is the plural masculine. It's a masculine plural to a feminine noun.
There you go, yes.
The only translation is longer, takes longer to explain and describe in English than it is in Hebrew.
That's true.
Elohim in Hebrew instantly goes into the brain of somebody knowing Hebrew, that it is multiple, okay, more than one, and male and female. But if you lump them all together, they can still be the singularity of creation. And I guess that was just too much for the early church to handle.
It was, right? Yeah.
And for the leaders to expect the congregation to wrap their brains around.
I'm also curious because this also comes from, Greek mythology. Gods and goddesses, it always was a thing. It wasn't like just one god. So it makes you think, if they teach us that from the beginning, the meaning of Elohim from the beginning, how different this society will be.
I don't think it would hurt anybody.
Well, it will hurt the status quo of religion, the way they set it up.
Yeah. So that's what the esoteric study of exoteric religions. I think it's a very good thing.
Well, that's why we separate the Blue Lodge from Scottish Rite, for example. That's where you get in contact with, okay, you want more light, here it is. And I show you what it is.
You can see that was Albert Pike's, especially. He was our great light in the Scottish Rite. You can see that was his intent.
And he took, from the original Scottish Rite, he took a lot from Levi, literally verbatim. So
lots of in the Rosicrucians, the European Rosicrucians, and the alchemists, and the pagan philosophers, and the Neoplatonists, and the Greek philosophers, and the Egyptians.
I don't know if you read the original Scottish Rite. It's close, but he added up like 300 plugins to the Scottish Rite. Yeah, to the one we know.
But you can really get a good peek into his mind by looking at his Morals and Dogma and Magnum Opus.
Yeah, they finally, Scottish Rite, they released it this year or last year. I never had a copy. I always was on the degrees that I can, you can have the full ritual and just listen to it or read it if you're doing it. But now it's available, and actually everybody can buy it if they want to. Well, this is something that I think I talked to you about this. But so I'm writing a book about artificial intelligence and Kabbalah. It's interesting because, I've been studying Kabbalah for a long time. And when I was studying actually machine learning, Kabbalah and machine learning, they resemble each other. But, I thought it was my bias. I dismissed it for a long time. But the more I study machine learning, the more I realize, wait a minute, this is the same thing. Kabbalah and machine learning is the same thing. And I realized that will make sense because Kabbalah is a blueprint of creation, right? Artificial intelligence is trying to recreate a human brain. That's where it clicked. One thing that really clicked on me is when you actually, on the Chicken Kabbalah, when you explain the three first Sephirot. And I think that if you understand those three Sephirot, that's it. I think you're 50% into understanding Kabbalah.
You're right. Yeah.
It looks simple, but it's very profound. Can you go through those three Sephirots?
Mystics have said for thousands of years, and quantum physicists are saying right now, that existence itself is an aspect of consciousness. Everything is consciousness. Not only that, but when I say everything, I create a noun. And nouns limit things right away. Not only is everything consciousness, everything, including nothing, is consciousness. Space is an aspect of consciousness. Matter is an aspect of consciousness. Energy is an aspect of consciousness. Time is an aspect of consciousness. And if we would lump together the totality in order to explain it to ourselves, which is Kabbalah is merely an attempt to explain the unexplainable to ourselves. Because the second we start talking about it, we're screwing it up, But the totality, the singularity of the highest frequency of existence could be seen as a singularity, a number one. And that is the ultimate reality, a reality we could even dream of thinking about knowing exists. You and I are looking at each other, but we're looking at each other all within that singularity. And that singularity is not a place, it's not a space, it's a frequency. It's the highest frequency, a vibrating frequency of consciousness. That's what reality is. But if we treat that as one, then we know what that top circle is, that top emanation of the tree of life is. And the Kabbalah has a wonderful way of saying how that popped out of nothingness. And it's about as difficult to explain as physicists are now attempting to explain what happened before the Big Bang. But let's just start with that one, the one that's right on top, right there, number one. There is no other. There isn't. It's just the one. But for some reason, known only to that one, it wanted to become self-aware. The one said to itself sort of, gee, I wonder what I am. What am I? So the one, in order to become self-aware, had to somehow reflect itself. And in meditation, yogis, who are units of consciousness too, and mystics, who are units of consciousness too, reflect their self by turning inward and finding the center of themselves and reflect themselves that way. And they go, oh, that's what I am. I'm the totality. Until then, it didn't even need to know it was the totality. But once it identified itself as itself, the concept of two was created and its reflection. So now there's this concept of two going on. One going to two. You can't stop there, because once two was created, instantly a third creation, a third something was created. And that's the knowledge that there's a difference between the one and the two. 1, 2, and 3 aren't three numbers. 1, 2, and 3 are just one thinking about itself. 1, its reflection. 2, the knowledge that there's a difference between the one and the reflection. The self, the not self, the knowledge of the difference between the self and the not self. That's why every religion that's based on some sort of mystical revelation has this idea of a trinity, that God is a trinity of some kind, because God can't even think about itself unless it's these three emanations. So it's not even a descent of consciousness. It's just the process of deity becoming self-aware. So we have a trinity unit, a triangle, and that's a unit. Now, the same thing that caused one to reflect itself instantly reflected itself into a second trinity unit.
And that's the second part of the Sephirot.
And that's the second, okay? And see how it's reflected? It's not repeated, it's reflected.
And then it repeats itself.
And the same thing that caused 3 to be formed then replicated itself in a third trinity unit. Then dangling from all of that in an attempt to start the whole process over again in the most unreal, the most slow vibratory level, in the coldest, thickest level, is an attempt to start all over again.
The will to bestow, right?
Right. And so this would be, right, this idea of Yod-He, Vav-He, pronounced Jehovah, is an attempt to split this tree up into 4 major levels.
Right.
So Yod-He, Vav-He. And we're a reflection of this tree. And number 1 and 2, the Yod part of us, is the life force itself in us. And our true identity is the life force itself.
Wait, and that note for Freemasons, if you remember your signs, that's Kabbalah.
There's the path. Absolutely. And whoever was responsible for making those paths, they were hip to that. You know they were.
Yeah.
And they were also hip enough to say, but let's not start a religion about this.
Right.
Let's just go ahead and harmonize our souls with this divine pattern in the beautiful rituals, the signs, scripts, tokens of our craft. And we'll just let it take care of itself.
I think you agree with me too. The problem of Freemasonry, why we were so secretive, is not because we were doing anything nefarious. It's just like religious people hate us for believing on all the religions. The only reason Masonry keeps things secret is the profane world can be very dangerous, can be persecuting about things they don't understand. You wrote another wonderful book here.
Yes.
Where, again, Malcolm in the middle, right? And you went through the rabbit hole. I think on that note, I don't think we come from the Knight Templars, but we understood the Knight Templars died for something very important. So we took the spirit of, let's defend what they were trying to do. They study all the religions. Thanks to the Templars, actually, Kabbalah, maybe, I would say, that thanks to the Templars, Kabbalah survived.
How could they not be influenced and educated and informed and enriched by the Kabbalah? How could they not have? The culture that they were surviving in also had an esoteric tradition among the Muslim.
Right.
and that's the Sufi mysticism,
Okay.
which was also on this same sublime level as the Kabbalah, only it was coming from the forbidden esoteric science of the Muslims.
Yeah.
So there's this idea that people have misunderstood that the Templars perhaps were too cozy with the Saracens wasn't the fact that they were politically or militarily cozy with the Saracens. Their mysticism was a beautiful version of the mysticism of the Muslims. And the two mystic looked across the battlefield at each other and said, "Hey, hi, mystic guy over there." And they were going, "Hi, mystic guy over there." They said, "Well, let's don't do anything too stupid," here. And can you imagine that how easily that was to misunderstand to the medieval European mind? You're Satanists,
Right.
you're devil worshippers, and you're traitors too. It's nice to revere the Templars and Masonry, especially the 18th century Masonry in France. Said, "Oh my gosh, Templars that's our buddies. That's our traditional," the whole idea of liberty and opposition to superstition, tyranny, and oppression that gave rise to the American and the French revolutions all come from this wonderful inspiration of the creme de la creme of Templarism is very apparent.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think there is a direct lineage to the Templars, but we understood what the Templars were doing. And we took their flag and we continue the tradition pretty much.
Again, that shows the power of symbols. When I was raised, I had sort of a mystical experience as I was passing through the door initially. And I heard the senior warden's response to the master asking who the hell was out there, And when I heard it, I realized that I was stepping into something that was absolutely timeless. And that all of the major technical, you're speaking about artificial intelligence, all of the technology enshrined in the Egyptian Book of the Dead that required a person before they die to memorize a journey through multiple doorways, to memorize in detail the details of each door and the guardian of each door and the clothes that they wore and the names of the clothes that they wore and the names of the before they're allowed to pass through. And then they pass through to another door where they have to repeat back. They had to give back the memorized secrets that allowed them to pass from door to door to door. And I realized what the deceased, and when you die, you're supposed to say, okay, I'm not going to just fall asleep and dissolve into the energy matrix here, I'm not going to die like everybody else died. I'm going to keep my mind focused. And I'm going to walk through those doors as my physical body is dying and the brain cells are deteriorating and passing away. I'm going to step out of my brain and into my mind. And I'm going to walk myself step by step through each of those doors. I know what that guy's name is. That's a crocodile guy. Your name is Scale Pan, and I know what name your socks are. Okay, pass by me, And you've got it all memorized as you step by step rescue yourself from a deteriorating lower level of consciousness into an escape pod of a higher level of consciousness that takes you so far, and then you escape into an even higher frequency of consciousness and step into that escape pod and go in through the next doors until you finally deliver yourself intact to that higher level, or the glorified Osiris. Okay, that's the technology of the Egyptian Book of the Dead. And that's the technology of initiation.
Right.
And the initiatory society in the West that has held the pattern to that has held the key to that technology, whether anybody understood what it was or not, for generation after generation or generation. When I stepped through the door, I realized what the key was. And I realized that even though my brothers around me have no idea of what it is they're doing, they are still dutifully protecting that secret and passing it to me like as a jewel box for which they don't have a key, but they're still like good soldiers, like good Templars. They're passing it in perfect ritual, in perfect art form. They're passing it down through the ages.
You mentioned again, this is a little bit my thought on artificial intelligence. People start thinking on the matrix. And if you really, I think it's my opinion, if you really want to understand, quotes, the matrix, you should study Kabbalah or your explanation about the degrees and the passage. It goes back to the same thing. I think Kabbalah was the real study of the matrix.
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
It's the blueprint of the matrix.
Right. The Kabbalah, in a sense, is to engage this Vav section of our souls.
Different levels of consciousness.
Yes. Not only that, but to reorder it. Kabbalah serves to defragment our consciousness on all the levels so that our machinery is running smoother. It's a lube job of our consciousness, because eventually we're going to have to rise above even that.
Exactly.
Go up into number 3 on that tree of life. And that's a whole different part of our soul. I saw this movie called Lucy. She takes some kind of drug or something. She just gets so smart. By the minute, she just keeps getting smarter and smarter and smarter, just like Kabbalah. You know, she's, oh, I get that now. Oh, I get that now. You know, I'm getting really smart. And in the movie that there's a car chase and she's a cop or somebody is driving her around real fast and she's making him go real fast. And he says, what are you trying to do? Get us killed? And she says, nobody really dies. She just got so smart that it just became obvious that nobody really dies.
I love how Jim Carrey start talking about those things. And yeah, it's important that people like him talk about it.
Yeah. And I think we're coming to a place, and I don't know what it is, whether it's we're entering a new Yuga or some time period like the Hindus say that we go to golden ages and silver ages and ages where we're just stupid, you know. It really appears that since, say, the turn of the 20th century, people have been taking a quantum leap in consciousness. And I'm sure we can point to the rest of the world that's just going to crap. But I think this is like one of those axial periods that in human history that signal these periodic leaps in human evolution of consciousness. And during these periods of leaps, people that are just ready to make that leap. And it's very important. And you see it first in artists.
Right.
You see it in art. And the rest of the people just seem to be getting stupider. To me, it's obvious that we're at one of those periods.
Right. I'm not trying to plug my book. I think we need to teach Kabbalah to artificial intelligence programmers because they need to understand the blueprint of creation. So I don't think teaching Kabbalah to a computer is dangerous because the essence of Kabbalah is love. It's the best that you can teach to a computer, to love, to have empathy and to love. That's what Kabbalah teach. So if we don't teach that, the blueprints of what is good is going to be a problem. So that's why I think it's important to teach Kabbalah to a computer.
Well, that's probably your great work.
And I thank you because you're giving me the tools to actually explain in simple, not the way that for 20 years I was trying to learn.
So I've got I came back from China almost 3 years ago now. Came back from China every 90 days for a year and did Kabbalah initiation. And I sort of based it on that Chicken Kabbalah book and designed Masonic style temple initiation ceremonies to correspond to the Hebrew alphabet first the 3 mother letters, then the 7 doubles, and then the 12 simple letters. And when I came back home after the 4th trip, I put that information in a book called Son of Chicken Kabbalah. Well, that came out 2 years ago, I think. There you go, Son of Chicken Kabbalah. So if you want to think about a thing of self-initiation, you might use the pattern set in that book for yourself anyway. I don't know how that would translate to your artificial intelligence.
A lot. Like the more I got into machine learning, and the more you understand that it's the same thing. It is amazing. It was mind-blowing. We don't have lectures anymore. And by the way, what is your latest book other than, we got this one?
Yeah, that's the latest book. For the last year, I've been doing Zoom workshops. They're about 90 minutes.
You gave us a lot. You gave us every day on Facebook reading your books.
That's right. 1 year ago, I put up a question on Facebook. Would anybody be interested if I'd just read one of my books every morning for about 15 minutes, a half hour? And response was pretty good. And so I started. I'm really lazy. Have to be put in a situation where I'm forced to do something innovative. But anyway, I've been doing it every morning at 10 o'clock on my Facebook page. But it's not a commercial thing. It's not an audiobook commercial. You just more or less got to tune in or scroll down my page to get previous installments. But I do have, just in the last 2 months, a real live audiobook.
Nice.
Where an actor reads one of my books, and it's the Chicken Kabbalah.
Okay.
Of Rabbi Lamed Ben Clifford, one of the most popular of anything that.
Classic.
There you go.
And
Thank you very much.
And here is your beautiful.
Oh, I did that for you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Not everybody gets that. Okay. So anyway, the Chicken Kabbalah has come out on audiobooks, and it's doing very well. And I just couldn't help myself. I had to download a copy myself to listen to the guy. The guy talk like Rabbi Ben Clifford, and he's wonderful. He's just wonderful.
Lon, it's a pleasure, and I'm going to invite you again. And thank you. I see you when I see you on Facebook.
Okay, thanks for having me on.